Hey, Splinterheads, welcome back. Bronze Dragon here, saying thanks for your time. I appreciate you when you stop by and check out my videos. If you like them, please leave a like. After you've watched a few, if you like what I'm doing here, please think about subscribing. With that said, I wanted to go ahead and dive back in here. As you know, lately, I have been really fully immersed in the land game, or should I say, getting prepared for the land game, because last week I picked up 4 more plots to give me a total of 10. So I had to reorganize and rethink out my process because I'm getting to the point where I've spent so much money that I needed to re-level set what I was going to stake as far as the cards on each property, as well as think about all the extra DEC I'm going to have to come up with, etc. This video is not really about that. It is about land in the fact that I've been sifting through the land white paper. Really kind of to teach myself, because obviously I've been through it 100 times, but a lot of it is sifting through really quickly just to find particular facts, right? But there are a few things that I have kind of overlooked in the past, and I'm just going to, this promises to be one of my shorter videos, but I wanted to bring them out. You may already know these. You may have just skimmed right over them. So if it helps one person that's into land, I consider it a win. So let's go over to the white paper. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is staking cards. Now, we all know you can have a maximum of 5 cards staked on the land, unless one of those cards is a Rooney and you can get a 6th slot. Okay, so what I want to say, what I wanted to bring out is that, first of all, the cards have to be locked so that nothing else can be done with those cards. And then they can be staked. But the main point here is that if you go to switch your staked cards around, there's going to be a 3-day time period where that card, first of all, when you take the card off the land, it immediately stops making anything for that land, and you have to replace it. During that 3-day time period, it cannot be unlocked, which means it can't be sold. It can't be delegated. It can't be rented. It can't be used in battles, or it cannot be reassigned again to another plot. So basically, that card is in a holding pattern for 3 days. Okay. So for people thinking forward and thinking about flipping cards around, always keep this in mind. Okay. So that would also come up if you wanted to take a card off and try to sell it really fast for some reason. You're not going to be able to do that. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do. The locking feature, as far as I know, has always been there on a card. It's been really handy if you have some nice cards and you want to just for some reason make sure that you don't sell those or something or other. You can always lock the card, but that's going to have to be in place before you can stake it. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to point out. The second thing I want to talk about is power sources. Okay, so we all know that each property that you mine on, or each plot that you mine on, needs a power source. Now, that could come as a Rooney, or in this case, what we found out this week, Roonies won't be available at the beginning of 1.5. So even Rooney holders will have to come up with another power source. Power source takes burning 5,000 DEC or DECB, or it takes the fact that you bought building in the box. Okay, so you're going to need that power source, obviously, to start staking and doing anything on that land. And one of the requirements of power sources is that you have the DEC staked on the land to be able to run the power source. Okay, now I'm not going to elaborate on that as far as the Rooney goes. I don't own a Rooney, you know that. I don't have really anything against them. I don't buy them because I try not to do anything on the Ethereum blockchain, because anytime I do that, it just costs me an arm and a leg. I do kind of feel for the people who spent a lot of money on Roonies and did all their initial calculations to start off with it. I think it deserved a full-fledged announcement that instead of just letting it slip in a town square. That's neither here nor there, because another thing you'll see in the land white paper is the fact that several times they call out that anything can change. This game, as most of us know, is in constant flux. Things are constantly changing, and this is basically, kind of a fleshed out bare bones of how their land is going to go, and that's just one thing that didn't make it. I can't even guess. Probably the Ethereum blockchain coming in there. I don't know. Anyway, that's it on power sources. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and I'm trying to go through this quickly to hit a lot of salient points, but the staking of DEC. Okay. Now, the staking of DEC has to be DEC and not DECB. DECB can only be used for requirements where the DEC is burnt. Okay. I don't have any more DECB. I used it all in the contest. So whoever has it, it can be used for multiple things, but not for this. Okay. So we also know that it's 10,000 DEC for every max level card you have staked. So it's a max level of 50,000 DEC on a land. Now, the question comes to mind is, if you have a Rooney, is that 60,000? I don't know. Just came to mind. But anyway, let's say for most intents and purposes, 50,000 per land. Now, if you have cards that are less than max level staked, then there's a formula, and it's all in the white paper on how to do that. On this particular page, they do give you a breakdown of how to figure that out roughly, but let's just say it's less than 10,000, okay? So the next thing I want to say about that is DEC can be staked and unstaked at any time, and both operations take effect instantly. Here's the next thing. DEC staking is handled on a region basis for each player, so you do not need to manage your DEC for each individual plot. Please note that each player who has plots within a region will need to stake their own DEC. Okay, I was kind of going off on a tangent. The other main thing here that I wanted to mention was the harvesting. Okay, so we've talked about this a little bit, but you can harvest, when 1.5 comes out, they say that you will need to at least harvest once per week, once per 7 days, okay? And harvesting is very much like claiming SPS dividends that you may have earned in game or whatnot, okay? A few things about this, though. Okay, so the amount of DEC staked in the region will be compared with the total amount needed based on the worker cards on each plot the current player controls in that region during the period since the last harvest. If not enough DEC is staked in the region, then the production of all resources from all plots owned by the current player in the region will be reduced accordingly. I read that word for word just so I can emphasize that. Okay, so let me give you an example. You've got say you've got 3 plots in a region, and one of them's a really nice one. It's doing magic research or mining SPS or something, and you've got a bunch of good cards staked on that. Your other 2 are commons, just producing grain or something like that to a much lesser extent. If you don't have enough DEC staked for all of those cards, all of them, say for instance you only had 75%, okay? Everything is going to be reduced by 25%. Okay? So it's not just the plot that was understaked. It's everything on a region by region basis. So keep that in mind. And I emphasize that because that was a little tidbit that I came up with that surprised me. I hadn't heard of that one before. Okay? And then they give a little math example of what they're talking about. And it says here at the end, please note that staking or unstaking DEC in a region will trigger a harvest for all the players' land plots within that region. Okay? And this pretty much goes for everything. Any move that you will make that will change the staking percentages on a land will trigger a harvest. Unstake a card, it's going to trigger harvest. Okay? And then they have more in the harvesting section, but just keep that in mind in case you want to kind of get into a rhythm of when your harvests are there. Now, going forward into 2, one of the things that's promised is the way to extend further the amount of time you can go without harvesting, and that goes into having storage. But that's not fleshed out yet. That's just kind of an idea on the table. I'm sure they've worked on it, but there's no details on that out there yet. So there's that. Okay, so we went through terrain preferences, production points, production boosts. The next thing I want to cover is harvesting because it directly interfaces with what we were just talking about. And I've kind of talked about it already. Okay. While workers on land will be producing resources constantly over time, the resources will not be made available in a player's account until they are harvested, which is what I just elaborated on. Harvesting will be done on a plot-by-plot basis, or you can do it on a region basis to make it a little bit easier for yourself. Okay. And what I just said, a max of 7 days. Now, when harvesting, the algorithm will look at the amount of production points per hour generated by the plots being harvested and multiply that by the number of total hours since the last time that plot was harvested. And then that will be used to determine the amount of specific resource produced from the plot over the time period on the individual formulas. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. But the next two things that hit it are going to affect what you get out of it. There's a third thing too we'll mention after that. But the first thing is the DEC staking requirement, which we just talked about. The second thing is the need for grain to feed your workers. Okay, so both the DEC staking can, if you're not fully staked out for all your cards, it will reduce the amount you take away. Second thing is the amount of grain. Okay, so when you go to do a harvest, it'll do those calculations. It will also figure out how much grain you need to feed the monsters for that time period you're claiming for. And if you are not, if you don't have enough grain to feed them for that time period saved up, then you will have the option to purchase the grain you need at 1 DEC per grain, starting out, right? As we also know that once the grain market gets up and running, you'll want to kind of keep your, if you're choosing not to harvest grain, you'll want to keep your coffers full with enough grain to at least go between time periods that you're going to keep an eye on your land, right? You don't want it to run dry and then go and do a harvest and you don't have any grain. Grain, I'm assuming, will be very much like any other NFT on the market, that there will be an ebb and flow. Certain times of the week, people are claiming more. It'll get more expensive. I'm sure as time goes along and more land is put to harvesting grain, the price of grain on the market will go down. But who knows? I'm sure that mining SPS is going to be very popular. And if you're mining SPS, you're not going to be able to harvest grain as well. It's debatable. We'll see how popular the researching the magic, the Praetoria magic goes. I have a couple magic lands. I'm going to be participating in it, but that's kind of like a shot in the dark. You start, and then that's something, you know, that's going to hopefully pay off way down the road. Who knows? Okay, so the last thing I want to cover here is we talked about auto harvest. I don't really want to talk about totems. That's for a different video. But I will say that the third thing that will affect your harvest is taxes. There's going to be a flat 10% tax that will be collected on all resource production. So whatever you're getting, minus the two penalties, whether you have enough DEC staked or whether you have enough food, because also if you choose to do the harvest and you don't have enough food or grain and you don't want to choose not to buy it, then you will be penalized the percentage that you're off. So you theoretically could lose from both the DEC staking and the lack of grain, and then you're going to get hit with taxes on top of that. Okay? So what's the takeaway here? The takeaway is information. Know what you're getting into. If you're getting into the land game, use this information to the best of your ability to plan the best, and try not to take any hits. Have your DEC staked, have your grain saved up, or have a plan for getting your grain on a daily basis. With that said, I hope this few points about land has been interesting to you, or at least made you a little smarter on land. With that said, give me a thumbs up and a subscribe if you will. And this has been Bronze Dragon talking land. I'll see you on the flip side.